We are now live, and watch the participants at the bottom of the page. Welcoming everybody as you're joining us. We're going to give folks time to activate their login. And we're really thrilled to have you here with us tonight for the Friends of the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument and our annual research symposium and a look forward. We're about a third of the participants online so far, so I'm just going to give them a minute or two more. But we are going to get started here very shortly. We're up to 40 online. We have about 90 to sign in. And the Friends of the Monument started essentially at the same time the monument was going through its process to be designated by the President of the United States. And it was designated in year 2000. So last year was the 20th anniversary. And over these years, the Friends of the Monument is an independent, volunteer-driven nonprofit. I'm their only employee and I'm part-time. I'm the executive director, and we have a really great group of board members and volunteers that help us. We would like to, as many meetings, and you'll see city council meetings and many other meetings adopting this practice, we would like to do a short land acknowledgement to acknowledge the original traditional caretakers of this land, the indigenous peoples. The monument now covers 114,000 acres in Southern Oregon and Northern California. And depending on who you ask or what records you happen upon, the bands and tribes that resided on, traveled through, or utilized this land within the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument would include the Tacoma, the Klamath, the Shasta, the Quartz Valley Ranchera, the Cow Creek, the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz, even the Coquille, the Warm Springs, and Umatilla Indians. We want to recognize, and there's still so much that we're learning. We're working on an official acknowledgement, but these tribes and their ancestors called this place home, and we hope that we'll all continue to learn together to appreciate the way that they were caretakers of this land we inherited. So we are going to be introducing to you tonight, as you're aware from registering, a series of experts. And we're going to start with every year the Friends Awards grants for our research student. But we're going to have two of our board members that are currently in the master's degree program at Southern Oregon University serve as moderators coming here. And before I hand it over to Elaney, I want to just do a couple of other small acknowledgements. We want to congratulate the Klamath Bird Observatory, often known as KBO, who just received the Bureau of Land Management's National Conservation Partner Award. KBO has partnered with the Medford BLM for more than 20 years, has been instrumental in applying scientific research on birds to inform our public lands management and conservation. They're one of our partners, and it's wonderful to see our local or environmental organizations receive national acknowledgement for their long-term research and programs. Bravo. And we want to take just a moment to remember a special colleague, Dennis Ogden, who passed away about a year ago. He had a really deep understanding of the ecological processes and of the natural world, which he eagerly shared with other researchers and the Friends community on several of our previous Hike and Learn programs. We miss his kindness, his gentle spirit, and we'll be bringing those programs back just as soon as it's safe for everyone. And until then, we'll continue to meet in this way. So we're, again, excited how many people we have registered. We're moving forward, and I am going to turn it over to Miss Elaney Marcotte.
Hi, my name's Elaney. As Lisa said, I'm a student board member and a master's student of environmental education at SOU. So to kind of start us off tonight, we just wanted to have everyone in the normal chat Just put where you're watching from so we can kind of see where everyone is right now. Ashland, lots of Ashland. Some California, Portland.
Oh, hi, Jeff. Reading. Yeah, see, it's exciting to see. We didn't have to drive to the science building and we can reach everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So as you saw, we have two features, a chat feature, but there's also a Q&A feature. How we're going to use this is we are going to save all the questions until the end of all the presentations. But if you have a question at any point, you can put it in the Q&A. And then once we're done, Jackie and I will go through the questions and we are going to all answer them together. So they can either be general or directed at a specific person or a specific presentation. The presentations will be about 20 minutes. And like I said, we'll do the Q&A at the end of all three. And the presenters will be sharing their screens and all of our screens will be off so we can focus on their presentations. Okay, to start us off, we have Kendall John, who is a geology student at the University of Oregon. And they worked with SOU Professor Jad D'Allura, and she received a Friends research grant for the summer of 2020. And Kendall's work focused on the high cascade geological features of the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument. And we are going to hear more about this awesome research.
All right, thank you, Elaney. Let me share my screen. Move some stuff around. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to first thank Jad and everyone at the Friends for helping me on this project and allowing me to do this, especially with COVID. It was nice to get outside and not be trapped at home, even though we're still a little virtual, but we're getting there. So this is what I did last summer with Jad. All right, so a general geology of the region, if you're not familiar. So the base layer, we have the Western Cascade Arc, which is older, like Pilot Rock, for instance, Mount McLaughlin, which are like a stratovolcano, which is what we think of when we think of, you know, this region in Oregon, high, big Mount St. Helens, Mount Hood, stuff like that. But in our case, we were still in the high Cascades, but they were more of shield volcanoes. So they were more flat lying, more smooth lava flow. So not as fun to hike, but still really pretty and a lot to learn from. So this region right here, squared in, is where we did our research, and the green outlines the monument. We tried to stay in the monument as much as possible, but if there was a little outside, it was okay, just to get a better understanding of the geology, because it doesn't unfortunately stay within borders. So my research objectives were to map the northeastern part, which I just showed you. And this is based off the work of Mertzman, who mapped this whole region in a crazy amount of time. So we were kind of going through and like nitpicking his boundaries because he had a larger area to edit. And then we're also mapping the vents and faults using LiDAR, and then a geochemical analysis of lava flow units. So this is Mertzman's map, all four of them. As you can see, I'm kind of in the corner of all of them. And so that was our region to edit boundaries and map faults and vents. And so the first thing is geologic mapping. And here's one of the pictures looking at, Mount McLaughlin. And so to do this, we start with the geology, the rock hammer, breaking open rocks, and then we use a hand lens to identify them based off of previous work by Mertzman, how to identify them. And then we use, so there's a hand lens in the right picture. And then we use a GPS unit, which we need 3 satellites. So we kind of have to walk around in between trees because it's heavily forested until we can get our point, and then we visually map it on paper. As you can see, Jad is doing in the corner right there, and there's me on the GPS. It's not a phone, I promise. No service out there. And this picture on the right is a dike with a hammer. So we'd find outcrops like this, usually to start our research, try to find somewhere where it's exposed. And then the next thing we did was vents and faults. And so to do this, well, to find them first, so we weren't just like wandering out in the wilderness all alone, we use LiDAR, which is light detection and ranging, which basically it uses, what's the word? Sonar, there we go. And it basically removes trees, bushes, ground cover, anything that's blocking that. And so as you can see on here, you can see these big vents of lava flow areas that people didn't know were there or maps. So we hiked out there, and you can even see where the logging roads are and different like rivers and stuff. But we obviously use it for geology stuff. And you can also see faults and dikes in the area on this picture on the right. And this picture in the top left corner is actually a fissure eruption surrounded by lava flows. It's concave around it. And the picture on the bottom right is where we did more of our mapping these vents, was on Old Baldy. You can kind of see there's little faults in between, and these ridges right here are actually part of the lava flow. They're kind of broken up right here. And then this is Summit Rock, the big picture, which looks really cool. Think of it as like a snake head, which shows it flows outward. An event is where it starts flowing out. And this picture on the right kind of shows the drainage patterns and faults through the area. And so then we collected our 9 samples from these areas and cut them down to thin sections, which are about 30 microns. Yeah. And then we put them under a microscope in cross-polarized light to identify different minerals involved and mineral assemblages and fractional crystallization. So the one in the middle is more of what we saw, which is a lot tinier of minerals because it is a lava flow. So things cooled a lot faster, and so they cooled smaller and rapidly. But there's still a couple big ones which would have came out first, like this rainbow one in the middle. That's some olivine, and so it melted out first because it cools at higher temperatures than the surrounding stuff. And that's why it's bigger. So then the fun part of going back to the lab, then the rest of the sample that we use, we crush the rock, and I have a little video of me using this. So started from the sledgehammer to that. And then as it got into finer and finer powder, we use this ball mill on the right to get it almost as fine as flour. Oops. There we go. And then we sieved it to make sure it was homogeneous until we put it in these little powder jars, as you see on the right. So a lot of crushing, sieving, repeating until it was fine enough and all mixed together. And so then the fun part, after it was mixed, we got to heat it up to 1,000 degrees Celsius and basically cook the rock down into a little bead. So let me play that video. So this is us taking it out. Right, yeah, had a lot of safety precautions. So we did that twice. We heated it up, let it cool, broke it again, mixed it all up again just to make sure it's all even. made it into a smaller bead like this video. In the middle is a time elapse of it cooling down. I'm just going to play it again because it's really pretty and it goes kind of fast. All right, nice. And then the picture in the bottom right corner is what it looks like at the end. It's called a bead. And then we send that off to Hamilton College for chemical analysis. And then the results of this. So this is our map that we did. The thick black lines are faults. As you can see, they're northwest trending. And the little red blobs are the vents that we mapped, or the openings of the flow. And you can see their flow direction, like right here. Oops, I clicked it, my bad. So the fault opened it, it flew out and flowed this way down. And it kind of follows that drainage pattern through. And then so when we did get the chemical analysis back, we used AFM diagrams to compare it to samples around the world with its composition. And then this diagram on the right is our rare earth elements diagram. So it shows the trace or spider diagram to compare all 9 of our samples to each other and which are lacking and which has what. And this further kind of shows like the genesis of the eruption. Sorry if I kind of rushed through that, but I just wanted to again say a special thanks to everyone at the Friends. They've all been great this summer, especially Jad for showing me and teaching me how to do field geology. It was something I'm very interested in, and it was amazing. I honestly did not want to go home. I had a great time crushing rocks and hiking and mapping things. And then of course, Jad's dogs on the right were my little buddies. So, and also Terry, as you can see on the left right here, for coming out with us for a day in the field, hiking, getting to learn some fun stuff. But thank you guys. And I think I'm passing it back off to Elaney.
Yeah, I think we were going to pass it to Jad to say a few words.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to skip over you, Jad. Back to you, Jad.
Oh, how do we get back? Oh, there I am. There I am. I did. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. I thought my picture would come up. Okay. Am I being heard by anybody, or am I out in the wilderness?
You're good, Jad.
Oh, I'm good. Okay, great. Well, Kendall was actually my 12th student out there. Started in 2014 with students mostly from the University of Oregon, and 9 of them actually got support from the Friends Research Grant, which is terrific in terms of not only allowing them to get some financial support, but also something to put on their resume and to get some more independent research sort of under their belt. So it's a great opportunity for the students who are interested in sort of pursuing something at the end of their undergraduate career before they start out on some other trajectories. 5 of them, of the people, have actually gone on for a master's degree or obtained master's degrees, and the rest of them are working as geologists, except for one of them who went into making wine. So I guess I drove him to drink. But at any rate, these students were all exceptional in the field. They were all very interested in what they were doing. Their research projects were fantastic. Their professionalism was good. And basically what they did is carried a lot of heavy rock samples for me that I didn't have to carry myself, which is always a boon. as well as going out in the field and doing something that I love, that is sort of pushing back the frontiers of geologic mysteries. And also I was a teacher for 33 years, and this allows me to do a little more teaching in a much more informal setting. So I really thank the Friends for supporting this particular endeavor for not just students, but many other people in not just fields of science, but anybody who's interested in the monument and wants to share their expertise and their excitement about working in this wonderful area. And rather than go on anymore, I think I'll just end it at this particular point, although I'll put on my hat from the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument, which you can buy. There's t-shirts and all sorts of cups and things like that. I guess that's the ad for the Friends, this particular point. So unless I've missed something else important, I think we'll carry on with the next presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kendall and Jad. Just to remind everybody, if you have questions about Kendall's research or questions for Kendall or Jad, make sure to put them in the Q&A chat, and we will get to them at the end of our three presentations. So next up, we have Charles Shells. I'd like to introduce Charles Shells. He is the ecologist and botanist for the Bureau of Land Management on the monument. And he will be introducing the priority goals and opportunities in 2021 for hands-on restoration and research within the monument. So Charlie, would you like to share about projects on the monument?
Charlie, you're in.
Am I in?
Yes,
Here, can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can see your screen. So you don't need to lock into the Zoom. Just go right to your presentation. There you go.
Okay. Well, hello everyone and welcome, and thanks in particular to the to the Friends of the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument for putting this on, and also thanks to SOU and everyone else that has been helping with this. I'd like to start off with just telling you, where we're going here with this talk. I'm going to be talking about 4 different subjects and or 4 different segments. And so I'll be doing a quick introduction to the monument, and then I'll be talking about the community science volunteer program that we've put together with the Friends group. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do as an ecologist for the monument, because a lot of the programs that the community science volunteer, a lot of the projects that the community science volunteer program is involved in are pretty much things that I do. And then the last segment there, we'll just go and do it, and I'll do a brief description of a number of some of the projects that we're working on.
Mr. Charlie, I'm going to ask you to also start your video so they can see your face while you talk. Bottom left corner if you move your mouse.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
Thank you.
Looks like I'm having some technical problems here with changing screens. Okay, there you go. Okay, so as many people know, the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument was the first monument really set aside for purely for protecting its biodiversity. And this is the first paragraph to the presidential proclamation back in 2000 that formed the monument. And as you can see right in the first paragraph, they talk specifically about biodiversity, but they also talk about the region's biological crossroads, our wildlife connections and things like that. So those are two of the main things that guide me in the work that I do. Just a quick orientation here. Ashland is circled in red there. This is a Grizzly Peak up here, and the green line are the boundaries to the monument. And as you can see, it goes all the way across past Howard Prairie Reservoir over to Surveyor Mountain and our Surveyor Ridge. And then it goes all the way down to California border and actually extends into California there. This is the old Horseshoe Ranch Wildlife Preserve, and we share the management of that area with the state of California, actually. And so the white areas in this map are private land, which are not affected by the management of the monument, and the brown are federal properties, and the dark brown is the Soda Mountain Wilderness. So it's about a total of about 114,000 acres. So, so as I'm planning the different projects that I do, topmost on my mind are, what can we do to protect our biodiversity? What can we do to help preserve it and to understand it better? And the next thing would be connectivity, and how can we enhance the habitat out there so we can make the wildlife corridors out there more receptive to wildlife movement and biological movement. And then the other thing that is always on our minds is climate change, and how are our species adapted to climate change, and what can we do to really enhance their resilience, not only the species but the communities that we have in the monument. So a little thing, just a little quick thing about the connectivity. One thing that's really unique about this area is this center area it's called a land bridge, and it really involves the Siskiyou Mountains, which are part of the Siskiyou Mountains, which are really one of the only east-west mountain ranges along the Pacific coast. And what's really special about them is they really connect the coastal mountains, the north-south ranging coastal mountain with the Cascade Mountains. And so another really cool thing about the Siskiyous are they're relatively undeveloped. So they are a really effective wildlife corridor. And the blue here is the monument here. That's the boundaries of the monument. And as you can see, it's right at that intersection. And we just talked a little bit about climate change. And so the monument really is the perfect recipe for biodiversity and connectivity. And so what is that recipe? So I got some ingredients here. So 5 main ingredients is a mix of ecoregions. We have a number of ecoregions that meet pretty much meet are really close to where the monument is. ecoregions like the Cascade Mountains, the Siskiyou Mountains, or the, let's say, the Central Valley of California has an influence here also. Excuse me?
Go.
And so the next one is complex geology. It's really an area where, as Kendall was talking about, there's some young volcanics rocks, which are the youngest rocks in Oregon, where they meet, and they meet the oldest rocks in Oregon from the Siskiyou Mountains. And so that really contributes to biodiversity. And then another ingredient for biodiversity is an agreeable climate for a long time, over many thousands of years. There's been an agreeable, it's been a very moderate climate throughout the area. And so that really enhances speciation and biodiversity. And then we talked about the connectivity part. And then the last one is the lay of the land. And the monument has this prominent ridge that kind of bisects right through the middle of the monument almost. And it separates the Rogue River watershed from the Klamath River watershed. And then there's these ridges that kind of spread out from that main ridge. So it really causes, it really creates a lot of different habitats for and microhabitats for different species to adapt to with different environmental conditions. And so it's very conducive to increasing biodiversity and enhancing that. And so you know, when doing management in the monument, these are the two management policies that we go by. And management practices can only be used to prevent the loss of biological and ecological values, or for research and scientific purposes. And ecological restoration can only occur in areas that have been previously degraded by human activities, things like timber harvest and livestock impacts. So that's the brief introduction. And now I'd like to just talk a little bit about the community science volunteer program that we have. This is a collaborative project with the Friends of the Monument. And what we're looking for is we're looking for people to help us. We have a lot of different projects going on out there. We're looking for detail-oriented and committed people to help us with the projects. And you can volunteers can commit anywhere from 3 hours for a restoration project to, let's say, you know, to adopting a transect or a plot for a whole season or something like that. So you can put a minimum amount of hours to a lot of hours into this project. The Friends of the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument have a website that you can go on to, and you can read about this program, and you can take a look at a number of the different projects that we're offering for volunteer participation. And you can sign up for it and let us know what your interests are, let us know what your availability is, and then we can get back to you and match you with a project. So what do I do in the monument there? I have my job, the way I look at it, I have 4 or 5 pillars of themes that I really go by when I'm planning projects in the monument. And so, those are inventory, monitoring, research, restoration, and collaboration. Inventory is really just, what's out there, what do we have out there? And so just looking at this picture, it's like, what kind of butterflies do we have and how many, what is the species richness? Same thing with flowers, that kind of thing. So it's mainly doing surveys and making lists of who's out there. Monitoring, and these are a number of monitoring programs that we have going right now. Monitoring is really looking at how are the things that are out there, how are they doing? How are the different populations doing? Are they doing well? Are they going downward or upward as far as trends? So so I've been spending the last couple of years establishing these monitoring programs and really trying to get our baseline data from which we can compare future data to, so that we can really see what the trends are. And then there's research. We have a number of different research projects going on in the monument. And so people are always welcome to participate in that, in the different projects. So whether you're interested in something like the Vesper sparrow or plantation restoration, whatever you're interested in, we can probably match you up with something. And restoration, and we're really just starting a number of restoration projects in the monument. And those are projects where volunteers can have a long-term commitment, or they can just spend 3 or 4 hours helping us seed an area or transplant native plants to the area, or things like that. And collaboration is kind of like the fifth pillar of my job, and it's to me it's one of the more important ones, and it involves groups like the Friends, like what we're doing right now, but it also involves university classes. This is a university class right here, and they get credit for working with me for about 2 weeks every year in the fall. And we work with conservation groups. We work with, we're starting to do some pretty intensive work with OSU Oregon Extension. We do some work with youth groups and local high schools. And we actually do a lot of work with private landowners and who live like within the monument or adjacent to the monument. So we're trying to develop relationships with all these types of groups and get them involved. So now I'll talk about a number of different projects that people can get involved in. Old growth mapping is one it's kind of an in-house project, and we have certain criteria for what old growth is. So you could work on your own, or you could work with a friend, or work with a couple of other folks, go out and look at different areas and determine whether they're old growth. And if they are, then you can start mapping those using mapping apps on your cell phones. And that's not the only thing we map, though. We map a lot of, we have a lot of other mapping projects going on. I'm mapping like springs and seeps within the monument, because those are such important environments, and so important for wildlife habitat, that kind of thing. And I'm mapping, another project I'm doing is mapping the large trees in the monument and measuring them, and just recording where they are, that kind of thing. And also the large snags, because they're so important with wildlife ecology and wildlife habitat, as wildlife habitat. So, and other programs, 2 other programs are our butterflies and butterfly monitoring and bee monitoring. And we're working closely with the Xerces Society and the invertebrate lab at Oregon State University. And we're also working with our neighbors in these projects too. We have a Willowit Ranch. They have a butterfly transect. We have a Vesper Meadow Restoration Preserve. They have a couple of butterfly transects on their property. And then we have the Sampson Creek Preserve also that have butterfly transects, and also the bee transect too. I mean, the bee monitoring is really just starting this year. And we're working very closely with the bee lab at Oregon State University and the Oregon Bee Atlas on that one. And, you know, when volunteers, you don't have to be an expert on these things. Mainly you have to have a decent camera, a decent, you know, even a cell phone camera. So if you go out and catch things on these transects, you can take pictures and you can send them to me and I can identify them, or if I can send them up to the invertebrate lab. So we train you how to do that kind of stuff. And then if you don't feel as though you can, you're even close to being an expert, you know, if you do this enough times, then you get pretty darn good at it. Another program we had to have is bird monitoring, and that's a collaborative effort between the National Park Service and the Klamath Bird Observatory and us. And we have set up bird transects throughout the monument, and we could use some volunteers to help with those too. The neat thing about this is it's part of the National Park Service Klamath Network Inventory and Monitoring Program. So it's we're not only looking at and kind of determining trends of, you know, how the bird populations are doing in the monument. We're also contributing to regional data sets and, you know, how everyone is doing in the region also. And vegetation monitoring is another collaborative program we have with the National Park Service, and that's another one where it's not only the monument, but it's regional also. We have a number of volunteer groups that have helped us with these. We set up these plots out in the forest, and we look at the trees. This guy here is measuring the height of a tree, and those other two that are in the background there, they've just finished measuring the DBH of the trees around there. So we map those trees, we measure things, and we also look at the shrubs, and we look at the forbs, and we look at the stuff that's on the ground too, as far as fire hazard, that kind of thing. Then another project is the grassland research and restoration project that we have, and this is a really cool program where we're working closely with some of our neighbors, the Vesper Meadow Restoration Program, our preserve, and the Sampson Creek Preserve. And we're working closely with a local conservation group called the Understory Initiative. And basically what we're doing is setting up permanent plots, and we are looking at the species richness in them. And most of the grasslands are really been impacted by overgrazing, and so there's a lot of invasives in them. In fact, they're mostly invasives, and they also what we're trying to do. The main goal here is to transform these highly impacted grasslands back to native perennial grasslands and native pollinator plants. So this is a real cool program because it really kind of includes everything of all the pillars that are due. I mean, it has to do with inventory. It has to do with you know, what's there. It has to do with monitoring, and so we're setting up long-term monitoring plots. And then it has to do with treatment, restoration, and it all has to do with research and how the different treatments, how effective are the different treatments that we're doing. And then another program we have is a riparian and aquatic systems restoration. And we're working closely with another local conservation group, the Beaver Coalition, and Southern Oregon University. This is Dr. Michael Parker here. He's helping out with building what we call a BDA or beaver dam analog, because this area here used to have beaver in it, but they were trapped out or hunted out a number of years ago. And so the pond in the background, which you can barely see, is starting to disappear. So we're trying to dam up the water a little bit to bring up the water level like the beavers would do. And it's really important in this area to do that, because this is critical habitat for the Oregon spotted frog, which requires open water. So we're trying to protect that. But what we're doing too is really looking at all the riparian areas throughout the monument and assessing the restoration needs. And so there's a lot of work to be done, and we could use a lot of help on that. And then one study we started after the Klamath fire down in the southern part of the monument is the Brewer Oak, how Brewer Oak reacts to different intensities of fire. After that fire was finished, I went right out there and established 30 permanent plots, and we're just looking at how this plant community is responding to the different intensities of wildfire. Now, Brewer Oak is really just it's a dwarf form of the white oak that we have, of the more common white oak that's mainly throughout our valley here in Ashland. Another program is the boundary fence monitoring and maintenance. We have volunteers who will adopt a section of fence and walk along that fence and maintain it and monitor, what any problems. We have a number of big problems with feral horses or wild horses in the southern part of the monument, getting into the monument and having big impact on the ecology. And also there's livestock trespass too on the east side of the monument. So we need people to walk the fence, help fix the fence, maintain it. And if there's areas where they can't fix it, then we bring in a crew and we'll fix it. And another program is our plantation restoration program, where these are areas that were clear cut like 40 years ago. We have about 70 of these plantations throughout the monument. And as you can see, they're overcrowded right now. They were planted back 40 years ago, right after they were cut. And so we're doing different treatments, different thinning treatments, and treatments for creating wildlife habitat in these areas. And this project will start within the next year or so, probably in the fall. And we could definitely use help with creating wildlife habitat throughout. And then we have a rare plant monitoring program and also an invasive plant monitoring program. And we're working closely with the understory initiative and a number of other organizations to look at both rare plants and invasive plants. So folks can help us do surveys for these different types of plants, or they can help us set up plots, because we want to take a look at long-term population trends, and we really don't have many plots set up out there now. And so this year we've just got some money for starting this year, and this program will really get going this year. And so help with that would be great. Then another thing that we're involved in is the National Phenology Network. So I have a couple of trails set up in the monument that we do on a regular basis, and we can have volunteers just hike those trails somewhat regularly and take pictures of flowers that show up along the trail or in the areas around the trail. And then we can send it to this national database. And what we're looking at is how flowering is changing with climate change over the years. And then I also have an iNaturalist account for the monument. And I've, over the last 3 or 4 years, I've contributed probably about 1,400 photos, which includes about 650 or so different species. So it's a good place to go look at the different species that we have in the monument and get familiar with what they look like. And we could use volunteers for both these projects. The iNaturalist one, if people take photos and send to me, I can get them on there, or they can create their own accounts and also contribute to the monuments account. And I'll just quickly go through these wildlife cameras. We set those up looking for what are the best wildlife corridors through the monument. This is an interesting picture because we got this cougar right here, but there's another one right here that you can barely see. And then there's another one back here. So it's pretty cool to see these large animals out there. And this year we're working with the Xerces Society, and they're going to be coming in and doing surveys for mollusks throughout the monument, because this is actually a hot spot for mollusks, believe it or not. And actually we have a lot of them that have been found that haven't even been described by science. So we have the Xerces Society coming in and doing surveys and collecting, and so people can help with that if they're interested in mollusks. Same kind of thing with fungi. We're looking at species diversity of fungi. We're working closely with Southern Oregon University and Jonathan Frank there. And we're also looking at what we can do with the fungi to is there anything we can do to enhance soil health by using fungi, by using inocula of different fungi in restoration projects. And we will be looking at lichens too. And we're looking at species diversity and also setting up monitoring of lichens. Well, that's it, folks. Thanks for bearing with me on that. And you can take a look at the website there. It's listed right there. Or if you have any questions, you're welcome to send me an email and or give me a call. My contact information is right there. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for that great presentation. And we just wanted to remind people, so continue to put questions in the chat, and if the Q&A feature isn't working, you can just put it in the normal chat. We've seen a couple questions so far, and we are going to have the panelists answer them after this final presentation. So Charles, I think you need to stop sharing your screen. Thank you. So our next presentation is Dr. Teresa Coker and Dr. Ariel Halpern. So they are both coordinators of the Environmental Education Graduate Program, which Jackie and I are a part of. Dr. Coker is one of the co-coordinators at SOU, and she teaches in both the Environmental Education Program and the School of Education. And Dr. Coker approaches education through an equity lens, continually seeking to make education accessible and obtainable for all. And Dr. Halpern also works in the Environmental Education Program as well as the Biology Program. She has been working in the Cascade-Siskiyou region since 2009, conducting ecological research, coordinating multi-stakeholder restoration projects, and developing place-based environmental education programs. Dr. Halpern is passionate about fostering a feeling of connection to the environment through direct experience of the extraordinary diversity in Southern Oregon and Northern California. And they are here today to speak a little bit about the graduate program at SOU. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Elaney. And many thanks to the Friends of the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument and the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument itself for inviting us to be here this evening and to share a little bit of virtual space with you. So I'll start off by introducing our program. We are the Masters of Science and Environmental Education program here at Southern Oregon University. We are unique in a number of different ways. We are NAAA accredited. This is the North American Association for Environmental Education. We are the only accredited program west of the Rockies, which is saying something considering what kind of diversity we have west of the Rockies. We're also very unique in that the EE program that we have here combines really strong educational practice with extensive preparation in the natural and environmental sciences. So concurrently, one is developing oneself as both an educator, a leader, and a scientist as well. We provide standards-aligned youth programming by virtue of our capstone experience called Fall in the Field, which Teresa will tell you a little bit about later. And we really serve as a hub for networking and resources here in the Rogue Valley in a number of different ways. We provide expertise to schools and nonprofits through internships. All of our graduate students are required to have internships, and you have Jackie and Elaney here as student board members with the Friends group. So we're very grateful for that relationship. And as well, we have environmental education kits programs, which is a program that is supported by the school districts, which allows us to circulate our educational kits to K through 12 classrooms. Next slide, please, Teresa. A little bit about me. I am a researcher. I got my PhD from the University of California at Berkeley in integrative biology. For the last however many years it's been since I started that, I have engaged with collaborative projects with Indigenous peoples in Northern California and Oregon, examining the effects of traditional fire management practices on quality, quantity of culturally valuable plant species, as well as general plant diversity. I am a Quercus person. I focus on oaks and, of course, Notholithocarpus, which is one of our endemic members of the family Fagaceae. I also have a deep love of the lily family, and one of my particular areas of interest is cultural burning and harvesting practices on the first geophyte species, including Brodia, Camassia, Fritillaria, and Tritilia. I teach ethnobotany, I teach fire ecology, vascular plant identification, plant ecology in the biology department, as well as special methods in EE and environmental issues, as well as stewarding the capstone experience and working with Teresa in a number of other classes. And with that, I will hand it off to my co-conspirator, Teresa Coker.
So as has already been mentioned, I am divided between environmental education and education. My background is in environmental education. I'm particularly interested in evaluation. So my doctoral work at The Ohio State looked at evaluating non-formal environmental education, working on a project that was a collaborative project with the Forest Service. I am interested in also culturally responsive teaching and have been examining that with a group at SOU. As far as what I teach, besides some environmental education classes, I teach an administration class because we do want to provide our students with experience in leadership opportunities. And I also teach a curriculum instruction, so lesson planning and curriculum planning. And although he is not present in our presentation, he is present in our program. And I know many of you probably know Michael Parker. He also teaches within our program. He's our ecologist and teaches a trends class and then some of our biology classes. So I wanted to mention him. But we are nothing if we don't have students, and our students are amazing. We have these cohort of students that come in as a group and work their way through our program. I picked these two to highlight because they're here, but I could have picked any one of them. These are amazing students. So Elaney is from Massachusetts. Her background is in biology. As you see, she has a lot of different work experience, both in adventure education and environmental education at Disney World, the Teton Science School, a school in Texas. And then they're really fascinating people. So Elaney studied abroad in Australia and conducted research on Tasmanian devils, which I think is fascinating. Jackie's from a little closer to home. So she's originally from California, but her undergraduate degree is at SOU. So she has a background in environmental science and policy and a certificate in sustainability leadership. And she shared that she has a background with vacationing with her family in Hawaii and found a love and spark for environmental science, environmental education because of wanting to conserve ocean environments. And I did take a peek at the participation list and noticed that we had 2 people from the last cohort, yay, Courtney and Monique, and 1 from 2 cohorts ago, Emily, that are also still attending. So it's nice to see some familiar names.
So we, in the environmental education program, our focus is on place-based environmental education. And what I could not think of a better place to experience place-based education than in this area that is world-renowned for its biodiversity in the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument. So in addition to the courses that we teach, within the biology department, environmental science department, so many other programs at SOU, the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument really provides the backbone for our capstone experience, which is called Fall in the Field, whereby we develop residential and non-residential programs. But specifically related to the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument, every year our graduate students, with whom we give so very much opportunity to create this capstone experience in their own image, 2 sites are selected every year by the graduate cohort, and day programs are conducted thereon. Historically, it has been either Hyatt Lake or Green Springs Mountain Loop Trail or Hobart Bluff. But we will run these day programs concurrently. They're by far our most popular programs. And to give you an idea of how popular they are, in 2019, prior to COVID, we had 38 school groups come and visit us. We served 38 of those school groups that amounted to approximately 900 students at those Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument sites. So this is a relationship that is supported by so very much. We have a cooperative agreement, a 5-year cooperative agreement with the BLM to offer these programs. And this agreement has provided such a backbone, as I have said, for us, and we look forward to continuing that relationship many years into the future. In addition, we have the world is our classroom, and excited we are to use it. Courses that incorporate the monument into them. I teach a natural history of the Pacific Northwest course that introduces our graduate students who come from all over the world to this astonishing biodiversity that we have here in our backyard. And of course, I can guarantee you we're out on the monument quite a bit during that class. Vascular plant and field identification, as well as field botany. That's one that I teach in the biology department. It's field-based. I will be teaching plant ecology as well here in a few short weeks, and I look forward to visiting the monument a number of different times to see how floral diversity changes over time, changes over the spring season. And then, of course, we have our place-based environmental education program, which really allows our graduate students to deepen their relationship not only with the sites of the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument, but also with their delivery of the curriculum that they prepare for their capstone experience. Next slide, please.
So we also have education classes that are taught primarily in the monument. So when we get to our capstone project to Fall in the Field, we have place-based education, which is our course where we practice. So we spend every day out in the field practicing our education. And then the leadership and teaching classes are the conducting of the Fall in the Field. But during that class, we also provide feedback and try to help students grow in their educational capacity. So we keep bringing up this Fall in the Field. This is a capstone project of our master's program. It's 8 weeks of non-residential programming and 6 to 8 weeks of residential programming. And we use a number of sites, but the monument is primarily our non-residential site. The program is completely developed by graduate students, and it's really designed from the ground up so that students not only learn how to do environmental education and learn natural history, but they learn the administrative skills that are connected to this kind of programming. So they learn about marketing and grant writing and curriculum development and the general liability and other issues.
So as I said before, our cooperative agreement with the BLM provides us with so very much support to engage in this capstone experience. It represents, as I was telling you, those statistics from 2019, they represent about 74.5% of the programming that we offer throughout the entire experience. So this cooperative agreement, and it supports the day programs that we offer at Fall in the Field for Fall in the Field on the monument. And we, again, are looking forward where our sites have been selected at this time, and we are looking forward to yet another year of programming on the monument. And I am sincerely hoping that it is in person this year, because it was hard to miss that year. Next slide, please, Teresa.
So I will mention this, especially because we have two amazing people from last year's cohort. Last year's cohort quickly pivoted to a virtual Fall in the Field and made some amazing film footage from their time on the monument. That footage is still available on our website. So if you're interested in seeing it, we can connect you to it. In general, besides this kind of year-and-a-half program where students go through some other features of it that we just like to highlight. One is that it's a cohort model. So we have 10 to 15 students in a cohort that go through the program as a group, and then they produce this final capstones experience together. And we think that's a very powerful model because they learn from each other. They work on committees together, they lead committees, and they learn as much from each other as they do from the faculty, in my opinion. As we mentioned, we do require them all to do practicum experiences. This serves so many purposes. Every student comes in with a different background and different goals of the program. And in a year and a half, you can only accomplish so much. So the practicums allow them to get out in the community, to start building relationships with organizations they might want to eventually be employed by, to gain some real world experience, but also to gain experience in places they feel like they need more of. So if they come in with strong biology background but want more education, we encourage them to do a practicum that allows them to actually teach. Or if they want more program administration, so they've had a lot of environmental ed teaching experience, but they want to know kind of more the budgeting, for instance, they could create a practicum or find a practicum related to that. And then we also have some student board positions, like with the Friends, which is what Elaney and Jackie are doing. So they can actually gain some experience with nonprofit boards and at the same time get some practicum hours. And so we're appreciative of organizations like this that open up those opportunities for our students. They always speak highly of it. And then last, our program does have some graduate assistantships. These are competitive, but when students are applying, there's a potential for that. And it comes with a requirement that you work so many hours, but you get an income, plus you get some tuition remission. So it's a great opportunity to help fund a graduate program. And then beyond what's required of everybody, we do have a couple of options that you can opt into. So one option is a thesis. We have 2 cohort members this year that have decided to take on a thesis project. It normally requires that you stay an extra term or 2, depending on your project. It can be education focused, science focused, or some hybrid of the 2. We also have the option that you can do a dual environmental education degree and an MAT, a Master's of Arts in Teaching. So to do both degrees simultaneously, it does take 2 years, but you leave not only with a Master's of Science in Environmental Education, but you leave with teaching licensure. And you can get licensed as an elementary teacher or as a high school science teacher, depending on if you have the background coming in. So for instance, Emily Olson, who is here, went that route and did the dual program. Our third option is that there's a certificate in nonprofit management that you can add to our program. It doesn't require that you stay any longer than the 18 months, but it does require some extra courses. And so that is a third option for those people that want to either work with nonprofits or start their own nonprofit. They can get background in that.
So as Teresa said earlier, one of the measures of our success is the success of our students and the students that come through this program. And to that end, it is not only our job, but our joy to help connect our students with opportunities that will, in which they find senses of personal well-being and meaning, and also joy. And this is just a select few of our students who have gone on to positions of their choosing. One of whom I would also like to call out is Crystal Nichols, who was a research fellow for the Friends of the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument a year back, and who created a visual homage to the biodiversity of the region in a video that she produced through the generous research grant that was provided by the Friends. We also have Monique here today as well. I saw her name in the audience, and it's good to see her here too. She's currently the River Education Manager at the South Yuba River Citizens League, and so very many others. So again, this is such an important part of our program. Our students come to grow, they come to learn, and then they also, of course, come to find gainful and meaningful employment. And it's a particular joy of mine to be able to help them discover those areas where they can find jobs and find personal senses of accomplishment and happiness ultimately. So we appreciate the questions come at the end of all presentations, but please do visit us on our website. And if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to reach out at seek@sou.edu. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you both for that awesome presentation. We are going to move into some questions. We're going to start with some questions for Kendall, just so you're ready. You kind of answered some in the chat, and some of the questions have been answered in the chat, but now is the time if you have any other questions that we're going to go through them. Okay, Kendall. Someone asked, what apps do you use to map or to help you with the mapping?
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I just answered the other question. Actually, we don't use any apps. We have like an old GPS locator and we map it on a topo map by hand with our little map board out there. I'm sure there's like nicer GPSs to do that, but it's always good to have double check and do that on paper. I know if you're interested in topo maps, there are like offline apps you can download on your phone I mean, that's what you're into. I like those. I have some. I wouldn't necessarily use them because the GPS on your phone, though, is a little bit different than these nicer GPSs that have satellite locators. The old-fashioned way.
Yeah, so you did answer some in the chat. Would you like to just expand on what's in the chat and just kind of explain in case people haven't read the chat yet?
Oh yeah, let me open these. So the first one was the LiDAR one, right? Yeah. So that one we can figure out like the structures and stuff that we couldn't see previously, but we can't determine age from LiDAR. We can only visually see it. We can't infer like that one lava flow is older or younger than another because it's hard to tell and what is overlying what unless we're there actually in person. But it's a good way to find areas to go map a lot faster instead of hunting around in the wilderness for this kind of stuff. But so for the ages, we use geochemical analysis with like age dating techniques and stuff like that. So we can age the flows based more off that. And then I think that's the one for Charles. Oh, and then so the other one is the faulting in the mapping area and extension of basin and range. Features of the Klamath Basin or different origin. It's like the westernmost faults of the basin and range. Good catch. I like that. I like that people know their geologic providences. It's definitely one of my favorites. I recommend going to like Death Valley and stuff like that. But yes, they're normal faults, which are pretty common in this area. I think that was the last one. I'm not forgetting one, am I? Okay. Unless anyone has any more. I love answering geology questions.
think someone put it in the chat, so I'll ask it. The map question was for Charles. So, but it was awesome you answered that too, because
That makes
we're
sense.
more about
Yeah, I was
yours.
gonna say.
But so Charles, they're wondering what apps you use for mapping in the monument for your research.
Yeah, well, we use a program developed for the government, by the government. It's called S1. That's a really good one. But I also use Avenza, which is very available to anybody. And so those are the two that we mainly use when we're doing mapping out there. They're very accurate. They're both offline, and they're just excellent programs. I think the public can use S1, but it's pretty limited, unless you're actually volunteering for the government. Then I think they can set up an account for you.
Thank you. Same question for you, Charles, or same prompt, I guess. So you answered some of them in the chat already. Would like to expand on some of the answers that you gave in the chat and talk a little bit about what you've answered.
Oh boy, anyone in particular at this point? Someone was asking about beavers. Are we planning for reintroduction of beavers? And that's correct. That restoration project that we're doing, what we really want to do is create the conditions for beaver to come back. And if you create the conditions, if you create the food there for them, and especially the food, if you create the condition and the hydrology for them to want to come back, they might just show up on their own. But we're also interested in reintroducing beaver in the area. They are just such an important part of the ecosystem, and have been missing from the ecosystem for many years now. They were really overhunted and overtrapped over the history of this country. So I can't see the other questions. Is there another one there?
Someone asked about overgrazing in grasslands.
Yeah, well, all our grasslands have a history, 100 plus years of grazing by livestock and sheep. And so that has had a big impact on our grasslands. And so right now, if you look around the grasslands around that kind of surround Ashland, right at the base of the monument, most of those are pretty much all non-native species that are in there right now. So they're not really functioning ecologically for our native species. And we do have some areas that have the native perennial grasses instead of the non-native annual grasses. And so we're trying to figure out a way to get those perennial grasses back into these other highly impacted areas. It's going to take some time, but we started that project last year, and we're making pretty good progress on it.
We have a question here that can be for Charles and Lisa. Lisa kind of answered a little bit of it in the chat, but some of our attendees are wondering about, are you collaborating with Native tribes, or do you have plans to do so, and what tribes in the area?
I can start. The Friends, as an independent nonprofit organization that works collaboratively with the BLM, we are working first and foremost with Brooke Colley, the professor that is the head of Native American Studies at Southern Oregon University, and her program. She has launched an Indigenous Gardens network to do some demonstration gardens about Indigenous foods, and to actually plant one. Ideally, they want to do one on the campus at SOU and possibly at Vesper Meadows, which is adjacent property to the boundary of the monument. So we're participating with them, and they have brought on board the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz, which really also represent the Takelma tribe, which was the largest inhabitants from the monument area. We're working with them, and it's really, we literally have a Zoom meeting tomorrow morning. So we have met at the campus. We have literally met and hiked together, looking at the lands, and it's a pretty exciting opportunity that we want to support in every way that we can, and hopefully bring educational opportunities to our general community scientists that might want to learn about it, participate, tour, or support it. And so we welcome, you know, I know folks, I've worked with the Coquille, I've worked with Cow Creek on other projects, and we continue to hope that that process will expand in other things. Again, we're looking at a lecture series that's going to come up, and we're already talking to David Lewis. He's an expert, an author up at, Terry's not mic'd, up at OSU area. David West, who's very well known here locally. He's going to be working with us. And so, again, we wanted to start our meeting with that land acknowledgement. We've continued to pursue that research and support cultural history within the monument. According to the earlier documents that I've reviewed, there's over 91 sites already identified that have cultural, archaeological importance. And also the Chinese immigrants were a big part of the railroad. As we know, last year was the 100th year anniversary of the Chinese helping build the Cross National Railroad. Well, SOU's archaeology department worked with BLM, worked with us, I think the Historical Society, and they conducted a big project that won the Oregon Heritage Award last year for archaeology and research documentation about the Chinese diaspora. So we're going to be bringing that to you as a lecture on our upcoming free lecture series, and we're able to do all of this because of our generous donors and partners that support the Friends. See, did we get?
And I haven't worked with any of the native tribes. I've done a couple small projects with them, but nothing too detailed at this point. But I am very interested in doing that.
And the BLM has a different expert who is your direct liaison to the tribal governments as a government to government relationship. And I and Terry have met with them and others there at the BLM office so that we are always respectful of recognizing that there is a sovereign government relationship, and that, you know, we're not interfering at that level. We want to all be collaborative. We all want to support each other, and we want to be respectful of, you know, their history and their goal to reestablish some of their native ways and foodways.
You did have a question, Lisa, and I guess this could be for anyone too. Is the meeting tomorrow open? And then I guess off of that too, like what are ways that people can be a part of this, or any of you that might know?
That's a good question. This particular one tomorrow morning is not, because again, we've really just started meeting over the last few months and identifying our resources that we can contribute to each other, how we're going to work together, how communication gets shared. So it's more at the academic level right now, but I believe they are going to launch a more public series about how to work with tribes, how to understand tribes, and they have a grant to do this. So I think there'll be more information. So again, subscribe to our e-news. We send one e-news letter a month, and you know, but unless we have breaking news or reminders. So we'll be keeping people abreast of all these public opportunities. And Charles has worked really hard with Terry and his wife to put all of these new ecology programs on our website, all of these new volunteer opportunities that we're going to be working together on. And there's a question about massive earthquakes that just came through.
Lisa, before we move on to that, I think Ariel was going to speak. I just wanted to
that'd be great.
Give her the chance. And she looked like she was going to say something.
Sure, thanks. I am co-PI with Brooke on the Indigenous Garden Network. Brooke and I have wrote a grant with the Oregon Cultural Trust to initiate this collaborative, essentially, with Confederated Tribes of Siletz and Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. So we were very much, it's a unique and wonderful opportunity because it is a grant that entirely covers essentially the planning and development of a trajectory for the IGN. So we have been holding partner meetings with our tribal collaborators, as well as with our Southwest Oregon partners, of which the Friends is, of course, a very important member, since October of last year. And we are looking forward to, we have our first, as Lisa said, we have our first peer learning community that's occurring tomorrow morning. It's the first of them. There will be many more. So if there is interest, please, by all means, share your contact information with Lisa. I'm sure that Lisa will be able to share it with us and we can get you involved. Our Southern Oregon land partners are, of course, extremely important to us. And we are always, as we said, we are in the planning stages and we are looking for new ways to offer opportunity for these tribes who have been forcibly removed from their ancestral territories to reconnect and redevelop and continue to develop those all important kinship networks and relationships with first foods, fibers, and medicine plants, as well as wildlife and water and just the simple act of being able to walk on your homeland. Thank you, Lainey.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I knew you were involved with it, so I thank you for sharing about that work.
Yeah, so we did have the question here about what are your thoughts about a massive earthquake in the Pacific Northwest in the near future? So I'd love to hear Kendall answer this one.
Yes, we all hear about the Cascadia subduction. So you know, the West Coast is an active continental margin. So these things are bound to happen. Here's the thing though, with science, it's not a definite, it's gonna happen now. It's gonna happen at this particular place or this depth, which is how we measure earthquakes. And people can lose their jobs by saying that. So I can't say anything specific, but in the near future is definitely relative. Like 1,000 years is like a blink of an eye through, in terms of geologic time, that's nothing. So it could happen in 5 minutes, could happen in like a couple thousand years or more. Also, it doesn't necessarily, just because we have earthquakes in this region doesn't mean we will feel them, or, you know, buildings will be destroyed and stuff like that. It all is just very dependent on where it is, if it like triggers a tsunami, everything, or the depth, if it's really deep, that can cause different stuff. I know, Shelley, that you're in the Willamette Valley, so even like the sediment you're on varies. So your stuff is more silt and clays, which can have liquefaction problems, and you're right by the river too. Shelley, you really got it. You're in a iffy place, but nowhere is nowhere you can escape from geologic events. Somewhere there's always something else going to happen, no matter where you live. So I hope that answers your question. I don't think, I can't say anything but for definite, but there might be an earthquake. It doesn't help to prepare for, like, it helps to be prepared just in case it happens, but I can't say when or where it will happen. But yes, good question. I love earthquakes. Well, I don't like when they happen. I like to learn about earthquakes. Probably should clarify that.
Well, there are a couple people who do research in this area, like at Oregon State University, Chris Goldfinger, and I don't know if I get the statistics right. Statistics, well, you can do anything with them, but he says something like there's a 37% chance in the next 50 years of a big earthquake. But again, that's statistics. So big earthquakes have happened. We are theoretically, statistically overdue for them, But then again, there are minor earthquakes that sort of occur and release the stress too, which could happen. So I think, again, most of us hedge around the answers unless we're seismologists. And even then, the seismologists are saying, here is statistically what happened in the past, and here's what we predict in the future. But nature will have its way. And it depends on what type of substrate you're on. And Kendall did a really good job. If you're on sediment that's not very well consolidated, you're probably going to feel it if it's a big earthquake off the coast. If you're on bedrock, you might feel it, but the chance of damage is less. So there's all sorts of factors with respect to damage, with respect to earthquakes. And I've said too much.
Yeah. Another thing for like seismology is we have a lot of stations around, obviously, but they bounce off of different layers, like between the crusts and the mantle and stuff like that. And we can calculate the velocity of like P and S waves or surface waves, and actually be able to map magma chambers based off that, because these waves move slower through liquid and some not at all. They just reflect right back off. So that's a fun seismology fact, that we can do other stuff with earthquake research. So it's not all bad.
Oh yeah, and you can sign up now for Shake Alert too.
Yes.
You get that on your phone. So that will identify whether or not an earthquake has occurred. And depending upon where the earthquake is, how big it is, how much time you have to panic or not.
Yes, that came out last week or 2 weeks ago. So
Last week.
Last week, yeah. Definitely sign up. It's going to be great. I got a question via text from Shelley and asked what P and S waves are. So P waves are the primary wave. They are what is released first during an earthquake, and the secondary wave is second. They oscillate differently. Secondary waves can't go through liquid. So we can bounce that and calculate that with math. Seismology is all about math. It's very fun. And then the P waves can, but they just go slower. And then the surface waves are like what we see. There's different names for them, but fun stuff. So had to answer that one for everyone, just to clarify.
Thank you, everybody. I don't see any more questions. I think we've answered most of them, and if there's any more questions, people can put them in the Q&A, and we can answer via text. So we can move on to our closing remarks for this event. So I want to thank everybody for showing up to the event, tuning in. This is a kickoff for our upcoming lecture series, Inspiring Connections with Nature. Also, our application for the Friends Research Grant 2021 is open now, now until April 30th. And this grant is open for undergraduate and graduate students. And though it's called the Research Grant, we can fund research and projects relating to the monument. So it doesn't have to be just science, but we can fund projects relating to the arts. We've had some that were film, music related. So if you are a student here, or if you know of students that might be interested in receiving this grant, please visit our website where we have the 2021 grant application. I'll pass it off to Lisa for any other closing remarks that she'd like to give.
I just want to thank all of our wonderful experts and students here with us tonight. All of our attendees, we are recording this session. We will make it available and you will get one follow-up email. And if you choose not to opt into our other email newsletters, you will not be bothered by us again. We're just happy that you came and supported us and supported the students' work. We all are students, whether we're enrolled in formal academia or I just want to learn new things. So again, we're really, really grateful. We're a completely independent nonprofit. Everything that we support and do is funded by our generous donors. And we don't have any admission to charge, you know, so we are grateful for every bit of support. And that has allowed us to extend these grant opportunities, scholarship, however you want to look at it, and so many more things that we have in play. We're all eager to get our hands dirty. And I hope that we'll be able to do that this summer with Charles's guidance. So again, thanks Jad for being a faculty advisor, doing real research that is now going to the BLM. And he's got more projects that you could work on with him in the geology area, but we want to be sure people understand it could be biology, botany, it could be cultural history. There's lots of opportunities. So we welcome that. Share the word. It's right on our homepage of our website. You can send anybody a link. So I'd say good night. If anybody else would like to add any comments, I had hoped to turn the cameras on all of our attendees, but this format doesn't allow that. So we wanted to see your smiling faces at the end. I apologize. This new webinar format is really designed for us to present. But we'll have other meetings and lectures in the future. Join us for Rogue Valley Earth Day. It's coming up April 22nd through the 25th. We are going to be a part of that, and Professor Jad D'Allura is going to be our guest speaker. So if you're really interested in geology or other things, we may have more than one, who knows, we're working with them now. Look for the Rogue Valley Earth Day website and be a part. Thank you. I'm going to end this now if there are no further questions. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.